From Israel and the Galilee, where I live. Today is the 10th of December. The time really moves, huh? And it's 10:09 in the morning. We've got good weather up ahead now. Yesterday was a miserable rainy day. Today we'll hit 71. No rain and partially sunny. Sunny in the morning and then partially sunny. Tomorrow will be about the same with sunshine, and Monday about the same, and Tuesday about the same, and I think Wednesday we may have a good chance of rain, and then several days without rain. Highs again will be without the rain in the low 70s. I like sitting outside, but we're so used to heat, my hands get cold working the iPads, So I got some gloves and I cut the fingertips off the index and the thumb, and I use those, but I'm not a fan of rain. Not a fan. Okay, let's take a look at the live stream and see what's cooking. A fan of rain. So we do have sound and picture. I'll do a little bit of housekeeping in the chat while we wait for people to come in, which shouldn't take a long time. All right, we're almost there. Okay, let's do our praise, because we are a Bible-believing site. There is no God. We're Old and New Testament. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 Okay, so before we get into the Bible prophecy stuff, which what I'm going to do today with you is show you some, let's call them knockout things when you see people talking about Bible prophecy, to try to quickly understand if they are correct or not. Because what's the point of listening to some? I don't ever find anybody that has any. I find occasionally people have a little verse or something that has some relevance, but their overall picture falls down. It brings error into it. Okay. So a tiny portion of their message might be an interesting, correct interpretation of Bible prophecy, but their overall um, study that they're doing falls down. It's a rare day I ever find anybody that gets anything right. There are people out there that have the two witnesses right, being Elijah and Apostle John. There's quite a few. Then when it comes to the timing or the first appearing of the two witnesses in Scripture and what they really do, they fall apart. When you see the teachers start with the two witnesses appearing in Revelation 11 and they say it's in the tribulation, they really don't have any concept of Bible prophecy nor of the two witnesses. While they may identify them and they may read Revelation 11 and say these are the things they do, but they don't tell you who they do it to and when, and they don't deal with Zechariah 4, and they don't deal with Malachi 3, and they don't deal with the whole picture. Some will deal with Malachi 3 and misplace it to tribulation or some other days, and they don't get it. Okay, so I'm going to start with some news, which will be intel for the people that don't really care about God, and we'll go from there. America is walking into the snare. The snare is being set predominantly by China and Russia. Secondarily, Iran, North Korea, Venezuela. Thirdly, Hamas in Gaza, Lebanon, and the Houthis in Yemen. So they've got three tiers. North Korea is plenty powerful because they have a ton of soldiers and they have some. They don't have an aircraft, they don't have a real navy to speak of, but they have a lot of missiles and artillery that are pretty effective. And they have direct access with a shared border to South Korea. And that's important to the axis of evil. And they also can attack and effectively bring attacks on Japan as well. China would be the ones to really lay the big attack on Japan and the big attack on Guam and the big attack on Taiwan. And they're even looking at the Philippines now too. Okay? So China is a very conservative chess player, atheist, communist, warmongering government. Okay? No, they don't believe in rights to the people. The people are slaves to the ruling class, which would be communists in the right party and stuff like that. The people there, they want them to have some medical, they want them to have food and water and a place to live so they could get up in the morning and go to work effectively, and then they'd pay them with, fiat money or script money or paper money, whatever you want to call it. And they get them to do their work, and then these people go out and buy food and clothing and stuff like that, and continue to work and make the ruling class strong and rich and things of this nature. That's the way they operate. Okay? They'll have the people, with dreams. You work for some years and you buy a house and you get to own a house, and pass it on to your children. You know, they have all of this going on. Cars are very cheap in China. You know, in India, you could buy a cheap car for about $2,000 US dollars. Can you imagine that? Imagine that in Israel or America or Europe, you can go get a car. Now, it probably is not going to have airbags and safety features and stuff like that. But on a cold night in the rain, instead of waiting for a bus for 20 or 30 minutes and freezing and paying probably high bus fare and stuff like that, and then walking blocks to and fro your house or getting on a subway or the tubes or some kind of a train system, you can have your own vehicle. An enclosed vehicle with a heater, probably an air conditioner too, and you know, you can get by with that. It's better than nothing. In the more civilized countries, they give you nothing. Probably for $4,000 or $5,000 in India, you get a pretty decent car. Probably what would cost $20,000 in Israel, and probably $12,000 or $15,000 or something like that in America. You'd probably have a nice enough little compact car. That would have airbags and the safety belts and the proper construction of the hood and things like that. The car companies are very greedy, apparently, around the world, and they have other problems like tangled up here. They have other problems as well, like unions that cause a lot of high wages, and they got taxes and tariffs, safety standards, and the cars are insanely expensive. You know, back in the 50s, people were buying cars in America, you know, Ford, Chrysler, Chevy, stuff like that, for like $900, a basic car, which would be a large car by today's standards. It would have a 6-cylinder or maybe a small 8-cylinder carbureted. It wouldn't have any smog. It wouldn't have seat belts or safety features, but it was built out of heavy metal. These old cars were heavy metal, and that was its own type of protection. Now, if you combine those old cars with that heavy metal, and you put the seat belts in with the lap, you know, going across, you probably would never hit the windshields. You didn't have to worry about these expensive pop-out windshields. And you would have all this big, heavy, thick steel bumpers. And the other deficiency from the 50s cars, where you'd need to put them up with disc brakes all around and get good radial tires. And then you'd have something. But the car industry went nuts. They started with unleaded gas, and they started with all kinds of smog requirements and safety requirements, and all that keeps driving the prices higher and higher and higher. I'll tell you, in the 50s, when people had head-on collisions and hit trees and different types of accidents and stuff like that, they did pretty bad. Okay, because they had no seatbelt. A lot of people would go through, hit the windshield, and that's very, very bad, very bad. The dashboards were hard metal, and that's bad. But you got to remember, if you had the 3-point seatbelt, you wouldn't hit the dashboard, because the dashboard was far away from you. These were big cars, and they were reasonably economical. And you didn't have to worry about people hitting the door and coming in through the door, or, you know, people hitting the front of your car and the motor pushing into your lap, because if they hit the front of your car, there was big, heavy bumpers there. The steel in the bumpers was probably a quarter of an inch or thereabouts thick and heavy. So they had to and the bumpers didn't bend very easily, and they were riveted into the frame. So the bumper would stop the impact. Now, if you're going 60 miles an hour and another guy hits you at 60 miles an hour, well, even with the modern cars, you're going to have a problem. But I'll be the first to admit the modern cars, the airbags are all over the place, and that's going to protect you. And the hood over the engine is going to buckle to absorb energy, and they have braces to stop the motor from coming into your car. But when you're in a little car today, like a Fiat 500 or a Chevy Spark or something like that, and you hit a substantial SUV, you're going to be in a bad way. So these cars were large cars, and they had, people would buy, they didn't want to buy a coupe which didn't have the posts. Okay, so the door would open without a post, and they were afraid that if the car flipped, the roof would collapse. They did sell them that way later on, like in the, I guess, kind of late 50s into the 60s, but people would often prefer the posts, so they would typically have a four-door car, and you had the posts from the front door and the back door that would support the roof in the event of a turnover. So if you had them build the cars like they did in 1951 or 54, and you had radial tires and you had disc brakes all around, right? And you put seatbelts in for everybody, they would be much better than what you have today, in my opinion. Okay? They were simple. You know, you had to learn how to set your points, change the spark plugs, adjust your carburetor, and you could do your tune-ups. You didn't have to go to a shop where they plug it into a computer to find out what's wrong with the car. So the prices of the cars have gone up, the servicing of the cars has gone up, the insurance in the cars has gone up. When I was a kid in college, I think it used to cost about $90 a year to insure a car with fire, theft, collision, and stuff like that, you know, with a small deductible, $100 or $200 most, you know. So things were much easier for people. That's when America was being built up, you know. So somebody that never finished high school, that had a job as a clerk in a supermarket or something like that, was able to buy a house. Houses after World War II were $2,500 to $5,000. It was easy. Taxes were very, very low. Sales tax was very, very low. They didn't have 8, 9, 10% sales tax. It was, you know, 2%, 3%, you know. Some places didn't have sales tax. People weren't, you know, there wasn't a lot going on with state income taxes back then. It existed, but it was not that profound, and it was minuscule tax, you know, again, you know, 1, 2, 3%, you know. Federal income tax during World War II, I think, was 2.5% for most people. And you had a silver-backed currency. So anyway, let's move on. What happened that was of profound importance yesterday was the Houthi rebels in Yemen attacked French warships in the Red Sea to stop attacks from the Houthis on maritime vessels, private ships. And they shot the drones down. This French ship took out the drones, but we now have an instance of the Houthis shooting at French ships. They also yesterday shot at American Navy vessels, which engaged the threat and took them out. So now Biden's administration is talking about a coalition being formed in the Red Sea to stop the Houthis. This is not going to work. It's not. Sooner or later, one of these ships is going to miss and the drone will hit them. Or they'll use an anti-ship missile, and the anti-ship missile will hit them. Or they'll use boats. The Houthis have boats. They have drone boats. And they'll suicide attack a drone boat, an unmanned boat, into one of these ships and blow it up. It's going to happen. In any war, you're going to see, look at Russia with so-called sophisticated modern weapons. They have planes shot down and all drones shot down and all that. The same thing's going to happen in the Red Sea. It's not going to be that highly effective. Now, the anti-ship missile technology that Iran has access to is coming from North Korea, however good that is, China, which is probably somewhat pretty good, Russia, again, somewhat pretty good, and Iran, what they make themselves. So at this point, Iran is probably mustering up the best anti-ship missiles they could get to give them to the Houthis to interrupt the maritime traffic. Now, the Houthis said they're going to attack not only ships owned by Israelis, but any ship going to Israel, which would mean coming or going from Israel in my book, I'm sure. And the French ship was attacked for reasons I'm not exactly sure of. Maybe they're allied with America and Israel. I don't know what the logic was, but it was an overt attack. And 2 days ago, Israel said if America doesn't attack the Houthis, they will. But Israel can't do much. All Israel can do is bomb sites that the Houthis have, where missiles are, weapons, warehouses, things like this, that they could get intel on. It's not going to stop the Houthis, just like it didn't stop Hamas, because of tunnels and underground bunkers, and they probably have built these already under civilian structures. So if they're going to stop, America's going to stop the Houthis, they'll have a naval coalition very quickly. By that I mean 2-3 weeks. What this will be composed of is allies, particularly Italy, who already has ships in the Middle East for America support. France, who already has ships in the Middle East for America's support here. And the UK, that already has ships here. And probably Germany, who I don't know if they have any ships here. And America. And Israel could probably send 1 or 2 naval vessels as well. That, we have missiles shooting capability off of our ships. Israeli ships will probably stay up in the northern Red Sea near Israel to take down missiles headed to Israel, which they're extremely adept at doing. They try to hit Eilat. Some type of ground invasion from the Houthis or the Yemen government into Israel is extremely unlikely. They have to go through Saudi Arabia, who would not like that. A naval attack on Israel from the Houthis is extremely unlikely. They don't have that kind of a navy. So how would they do it? Well, they'll start by attacking by air, by missile, and from aircraft shooting missiles, rockets, and dropping bombs. Various positions their reconnaissance flights pick up over the Houthi and the Yemen territory that they deem to be a threat by flying reconnaissance flights that'll be constantly filming and photographing the land under the flight, and their analysts will take these videos and pictures and run them, on an enlarged basis and watch what they're looking at and run them through computers, which may give them clues as to where to look, And they'll get some target packages, and they'll have bombing and missile attacks and rocket attacks from aircraft on these things. It won't work because they're going to find them to be predominantly in tunnels and bunkers, and it's not going to stop anything. Look what we went through. It's day 64, I think, of the war with Hamas. Now, yesterday we had a missile at 2 p.m. from from Hamas in Gaza. Then at 4 p.m. we had a missile again. And then we didn't have any missiles till about after 10 o'clock this morning, around 10 o'clock this morning. So we went 18 hours. That's a long break from missiles. So the ability for the Hamas to shoot missiles out of Gaza is substantially and markedly reduced, big time. And that's excellent, okay? It means the end is coming. When they're not going to shoot any more missiles, there's going to be other ends coming also. But people are saying that Israel flooded the tunnels in Gaza. Look, what Israel did do is they took pumps to get water out of the Mediterranean, and they have the pumps in place, and then they would somehow get the water over to the tunnels, and then have big, 3-4 inch hoses, stick the hose into a tunnel entrance and let the water go and fill tunnels. Now, there are people saying that we already did this, and all the people I know in Israel on social media, not one ever said it's been done. And I'm sure we would have heard about it. Soldiers would have talked. It would have come out. It never came out. So they're just lying, in my opinion, to get you to click on their sites. It hasn't happened yet. Will it happen? Well, probably. Israel is vacillating back and forth as to what will actually happen when they flood the tunnels. We don't know. And they don't want to kill 6,000 or 7,000 Hamas, because the public opinion will go through the roof if we drown them like rats. And there could be hostages in the tunnel to stop the water from coming in, from flooding. Israel might also be waiting until they cut the missiles and rockets out altogether. And every day, Israel is closing up more entrances/exits from the tunnels. So this is an ongoing thing. So the tunnels at this point are substantially reduced in their effectiveness to Hamas, but apparently they still hold up there. But a lot of them went to the south because they have illegal tunnels, if you will, connecting the north to the south that are in the south. But the fighting in the south is going on now too, very vigorously. So they're not going to get much of a safe haven from going into the south of Gaza. They're not going to accomplish much of anything by doing that, except delay. So what their motivation is basically covered by a big cloud of psychotic behavior. They're nuts, okay? What are they trying to accomplish now? I don't know. Nobody's coming to their aid. Iran's not bringing 50 or 100,000 soldiers down there to fight for them. None of this is happening. So neither is Hezbollah or Houthi or anything. So what do? Well, before October 7th, Hamas and PIJ, with a few other of these little smaller groups, had about 50,000 soldiers. Let's just be generous and say there's only 45,000 left. What are we going to do with 45,000 of these Hamas people? We're certainly not going to have room to put them in any prison. Egypt does not want them in the Sinai Peninsula, which is today deemed to be Egypt territory. Egypt wants not a single one of them there. However, Egypt says now, this is in the last 24 hours, that they will absorb refugees from Gaza, which could be Hamas or they could be so-called civilians, and from there forward them on to other countries that agree to take them in. And apparently there are other unnamed countries agreeing to take them in. How many, we don't know. Now, this has got to help somewhat. See, the idea is not to leave them in Gaza, which is adjacent to Israel. The idea is to put them in other countries farther away from Israel, so they can't do much. Now, the other countries are mindful that Hamas may try to do another uprising in their country, so they're probably not going to want to take a lot of them. So I don't know how this is going to play out. Israel has every intention of bringing to military tribunal trial or a civil trial the Hamas operatives that they know were active inside Israel territory on October 7th and run them through the courts, leading to an execution. They probably will do this. Biden and America probably won't care as long as it's a small amount. Could be in the hundreds, though, you know. So what happens to Gaza? I mean, the war is going to be over very fast. What happens then? Well, Hamas will try to negotiate their way out of it. Once they lose 100% or 99.5% of their missile launching capabilities, then they're not much of a threat anymore, and they'll have to negotiate. And how? Well, they'll try to use the hostages, the men and the soldiers. How many are left still alive, we really don't know. And then, see, what Netanyahu's doing is he's crushing them with military might, because negotiating with them wasn't really very fruitful. It did get some hostages back for sure, but they started getting lunatic-y in their terms and their demands. They want to give the soldiers back that are hostage and the men. They want thousands of prisoners released from the jail, and they want a complete total ceasefire. And even Biden is saying no to that. See, Biden has to keep Netanyahu in office. Netanyahu, in terms of leaving office, getting thrown out of office, has got one foot on a banana peel, ready to fall and go out of office. So he has to appear to be a hero to Israel. So crushing Hamas and demilitarizing them would do it. Getting a few hundred of these characters, or as many as they can get, and putting them in trials and giving them life in prison or a death penalty, that would help also. I don't know how these Gazans are going to return to Gaza. Yesterday, 250 targets were destroyed, which is predominantly involving real estate. So more and more houses and businesses and streets are destroyed. And it's probably between 70 and 80% of the houses are damaged or destroyed. So where are they going? Israel has no intention of opening gates and letting them to come work in Israel anymore like 20,000 did. They're not doing that because they were part of the October 7th massacre by spying and even participating. So that's not going to happen. And if Biden starts pushing these things, what happens is various things could go into work: a vote of no confidence, Supreme Court rulings against Netanyahu when he's out of office, and then we have a new prime minister who is probably likely not going to want to see things Biden's way as much as Netanyahu does. So Biden has an interest in keeping Netanyahu in place because he obeys instructions. So the Lord is using Netanyahu's 3 active criminal cases, which total 16 years in jail if he's convicted, over Netanyahu's head. So if he gets the people of Israel mad at him and he gets thrown out of office, I'm sure miraculously his criminal cases are going to accelerate to the actual trial, and he could be then put in jail, and then Biden doesn't have his patsy in Israel anymore. So he's making concessions. It's curious how the Lord's working that. So he's making concessions to Biden to keep Biden. He's making concessions to Netanyahu to keep Netanyahu in power. Okay? So the idea of them putting the Gazans into the West Bank is still paramount on my mind. But let's see how it develops. Netanyahu tries that, the Israeli people will get rid of him because they know it's a kiss of death. Macron is a very weak leader, and Houthis shooting at his ships, he'll say, well, they didn't hurt the ships, what do I care? I don't want to have a war, you know, it's expensive, it'll wreck France, blah, 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 you know. So he may not do much of anything, but pressure from NATO and America would probably have him, you know, leave the ships he has here down here, that type of thing. So America is going to probably have to do something with the Houthis, which could be with an international coalition, but I doubt it. It would have to be an attack of boots on the ground in Yemen to get the Houthis tunnels. So it took us 2 months, but we only probably about 6 weeks when you just take into account when we entered Gaza, maybe 5 weeks. So it'll take America a month to bomb up the tunnels. Well, they'll have to have boots on the ground to do that. So there's 2 ways they can do it, and they'll probably do it both ways at the same time. One is to go in by sea. So they would have probably 3,000 to 5,000 Expeditionary Force Marines land on the beachhead. And just dig in. And the United States and or her allies would use air attacks with missiles and bombs to blow up all the resistance, probably within 15 to 25 miles of the coast that they're landing in. In addition, they could go in through Saudi Arabia, and Saudi Arabia has no love for the Houthis because in the last 9 months or so, or maybe a year, they've attacked the Aramco oil refinery in Saudi Arabia, their biggest one, twice with missile hits. So, you know, Saudi is nervous and doesn't want to run over to Iran and say, I'm your servant now, we support Iran. They don't want that either. They want to be back the way they were, with plenty of money and no threat to their homeland. Okay? So they would probably likely allow America plus allies to do a ground invasion into Yemen from Saudi Arabia. They have a common border, and the Americans, if they did it, would probably enter in at least 2, if not 3 locations. So they would have a pincher move coming on the Houthis, coming from the land border and the sea border with a lot of air support. And the Houthis would have to take to ground in the tunnels and fight like guerrillas, and they would eventually get worn down, and the tunnels would be destroyed, and that would be the end of the problem. But to do it by air only, America can't do that. Nobody can do it. America, UK, Germany, France, Italy, together can't do it. It's not going to work. It won't work. They're too well dug in. It'd have to take a big invasion, like what we did in Hamas, and there's a good chance the tunnels that the Houthis have in Yemen could be more sophisticated than what Hamas had in Gaza. The tunnels could be deeper, better fortified, larger. So it may involve something like 25,000 to even 100,000 soldiers to really overrun the place and blow up their infrastructure. And it's a massive job. That's the snare, getting America to embed a substantial amount of military into the Middle East, but not in Iran. They don't want the American military attacking homeland Iran, although if they have to, they'll put up with it, because Iran also is very heavily vested on the ground, and you're not going to get them unless you do boots on the ground, find the entrances to the tunnels and blow them up from, the ground perspective. It's very hard any other way. But it would be more preferential for Iran to not for the fighting not to be in homeland Iran, but to be in other countries in the Middle East. So Yemen is a prime candidate. It would suck a lot of American military resources there, Navy warships in the Red Sea, and it would accomplish the goal of having America spreading her military out around the world instead of protecting the homeland. It appears they are very dedicated to destroying America first, and then coming back and hitting Israel at their convenience, which is going to be Zechariah 12. Oh, I'm sorry. You're blocking me, Chief. I can't get out. I'll be right back, guys. Give me a second. we don't see the daughter of Babylon fighting in Zechariah 12. Nor do we see it in Ezekiel 38:39, which comes many years later, so it's already gone. So, it looks like Biden is going to embed American military, probably up working on Lebanon, very definitely to some extent with Yemen, and he likely will do an attack on Iran. Now, the Senate doesn't want him leaving the borders open, and he's refusing to close them. And they're refusing to approve funding for Ukraine and Israel. So, Austin, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, says if we don't fund Ukraine, we're going to have to go to open war against Russia, which is probably their plan. Okay? And the open war against Russia would begin in Ukraine. Thousands of troops in Ukraine with all kinds of military equipment fighting Russia. That's part of the snare. Get them to engage, get America to engage in many countries around the world other than Russia, Iran, and China. And North Korea, they're sacrificial pawn, as is Iran. China and Russia are the kingpins, and Venezuela too, with the any-day war with Guyana. So, when America goes into Ukraine, if the funding doesn't come, and they don't go into Ukraine, what happens is Russia takes over 2/3 or 3/4 of Ukraine. And they don't like that idea. And a lot of countries have also given so much equipment to Ukraine, they're afraid to give any more. So while the Ukraine fight happens, Russia doesn't care because it's in Ukraine. Russia would probably then hit, Belarus would be fighting, and Kaliningrad would be fighting, and they would hit Poland. Because Poland is the country they fly the weapons into and bring it into Ukraine. And that's in NATO countries, but so what? They don't care. And then Moldova would be an easy conquest for Russia, but it's not of very great consequence. It's not very rewarding. Russia looks like it's gunning for Finland. So I would say Poland and Finland are two primary targets for Russia. So this causes America and NATO to put military and troops into these countries to defend them against Russia. Thus, America is further embedded in fighting outside of America, but not in Russia, Iran, China, North Korea, and so forth, right? Now, America will try to invade North Korea if they start attacking South Korea, if they can. And Japan will get involved, and then China will get involved, and China will get involved with Taiwan and the Philippines, and America has got a good amount of military resources there that will have to be increased. And Russia, after they hit Finland, could hit Lithuania and Latvia and Denmark and Sweden and all these other countries, and cause a massive flow of American military out there. This leaves America in the home front relatively undefended because their resources are moving to all these trouble spots around the world, which Biden could justify. But Biden's in on the snare because you got to understand, not only did he open the borders up, which everybody's saying is sleeper agents, you know, military age males, 70% of those coming in, that's not a natural set of figures. It should be different than that. There should be a lot of children coming with mothers and fathers, not just military age males. It should be older males. You know, it's not right. You know, it's a wrong percentage. And he doesn't want to stop it. And he's telling them, if you don't fund Ukraine, we're going to do open war with Russia. Well, they're probably not going to agree to fund Ukraine. Now, he bypassed Congress by giving Israel 14,000 artillery shells the other day. That's not a massive amount. A massive amount would be 100,000, but 14,000 is a serious amount, okay? And this is what we're seeing, okay? And if you think Biden's not in on it, you tell me why he opened the borders to start with, knowing this would happen, and why he won't shut them now, knowing it happened past tense. If you can answer that, then you could debunk the idea that Biden's party to the snare. But there really is no answer for these things that is any good. You have to stop paying a lot of attention to what comes out of their mouth, and you have to pay a lot of attention to their actions. So the snare is being worked rather rapidly. So they're not worried about Israel that much right now. They're worried about getting America deep into the snare so they could attack it and get rid of America. And they were also quite concerned about weakening NATO because they don't want to see much of NATO come to the aid of America. So if NATO's entrenched fighting all over Europe and the Middle East and in the Pacific to help the allies there, then they're in great shape. Okay? Iran keeps saying they're going to increase and enhance the attacks on the American bases in Iraq and Syria. Well, they would be very fond of the United States having to deploy more and more military personnel and armor and resources into Iraq and Syria. That's part of the snare. They don't care about Iraq and Syria. So it looks like the way God's choreographing it, which is he overall is doing all this, not Satan and them. He's running the show, believe me. I think the way it's shaping up is Israel's going to be pretty much left alone while America goes deeper into the snare, which is a good thing because the two witnesses will start working in Israel. The first thing they do is the 2/3 get cut off, Ezekiel 34, the bad shepherds are gone, which is the government and of course the rabbis, and that when you see Zechariah 12, there is no democracy government of Israel, there is no IDF, they're all gone already. And the two witnesses are in place running Israel as the judges, or it calls them in King James governors or chiefs, which is the judges, which Isaiah 1 says that's how he's going to run Israel. Just like at the first with Moses and Aaron. And the 70 counselors. The same thing will happen, but instead of Moses and Aaron, it'll be Elijah and Apostle John. That's what's going to happen, the two witnesses, okay? So they'll be in place, and when they're already in place, and Malachi 3 says, I suppose I should read this. Now we're transitioning into Bible prophecy, obviously. Malachi 3 says, and you could learn so much from Malachi 3. Verse 1, behold, I will send my Malach, which is messenger, that's Elijah, and he shall prepare the way before me, before Yeshua. The Lord says to Yeshua in Psalm 110:1, sit thou at my right. The Lord said to my Lord, sit thou at my right hand until I make your enemies your footstool. Well, he's sending the two witnesses from heaven down. Well, one's already here already. They're both here. They're both in Israel now. To clear the way. That's what they're going to do. Okay. Because he says, sit down at my right hand until I make your enemies your footstool. Well, he's making the enemies his footstool heavily through the two witnesses, not in its complete entirety, but pretty heavily through the two witnesses. Okay? So this one called Elijah, it says, he shall prepare the way. Does that say... well, when we look at the actual words, it's Panay. Strong says appear. Okay, so it says, and he shall appear the way before me. Derek is like a street or a road or something, you know. So it says, my messenger, he shall appear on the road or the way. And then it says, before me, which is 6440, Panay, face. It means the face. So what this really means, and most people wouldn't even understand what I'm going to say now. Behold, and I believe that word is hine. Hine means to see. Behold's not the best way. So there's that song they used to sing in the Messianic congregations, Hine Yeshua HaMelech Yisrael. It's, you know, here comes, or see Yeshua, the King of Israel. Okay, which would be the appearing. But that's a song, it's not a scripture. Okay? And they don't interpret it to be the appearing of it. They're using it as the rapture or something, or the second coming. You know, they don't have doctrine worth of it. So it's Hine, see, I will send. Now the word for send is shalach. Shaleach. The pronunciation's a little hard. When you try to transliterate to English, it becomes a tongue twister. Shaliach is the way we say it in Israel. Shaliach. It means to... When the guy delivers your FedEx, he's a shaliach. Does that help? He's a messenger. Yeah, you could say he's a messenger. The word for messenger is malach. This is tangling on me all the time. I'm gonna fix this up. So it's a malach, which is a messenger. So messenger, I will send shaliach. Translation's not sitting right with me. It can mean appoint or give. It's interesting. And he shall, okay, I will shaliach, appoint my Malach, which would be Elijah, and prepare the Derek Punum, the road to my face, and Adonai, whom you seek, shall suddenly come to his temple. So the temple's here. The next temple is here. Okay? Now, 99% of the church world, or 99.8% or something like that, does not understand that the next temple comes down from heaven. See, now when you understand these things, which I'm going to show you this now, you will be able to understand why these churchianity teachers and prophecy conferences guys and guys selling the books and all that have no concept of what's really going to happen in prophecy. Because you'll see that they have so many pieces missing or misinterpreted or put in the wrong time frame. Everything is a mess with them. They don't have it at all. Okay? Ezekiel 37:26. Moreover, I will make a covenant of peace with them. That Yeshua is the peace offering, the lamb, the steer was the sin offering, although you have to get rid of the sins to have peace with God. I just said a lot in a mouthful. I will make a covenant of peace with them, speaking of Israel. It shall be an everlasting covenant. Well, we'll have everlasting life, so there you go. With them, and I will place them. Place them is Strong's word 54:14. I will place them. Where? In Israel. And multiply them. I'm thinking here 40-foot trailers of diapers is the way I'm reading it. And will set my sanctuary in the midst of them forevermore. Evermore, how could that be? Everlasting life, got it? Will set. Now the word set is 54:14 Strong's number. The actual word in Hebrew is Natan. So it's set, but the word for place is the same word, Natan, 54:14. And that's just like 6 or 7 words previous. So they're twisting words here. So why don't we read it where it says set the same way it used the same way it interpreted the word 6 or 7 words earlier. So it says, I will place them and multiply them and will place my sanctuary, and that's Mikdash, it's a temple. Okay, the Mikdash is, well, you could, let's go with temple. I was thinking tabernacle, but let's go with temple. Multiply them and place my Mikdash in the midst of them, which would be Jerusalem, forevermore, eternal life again. Okay? So when you read that, and this happens now in this time frame, which is going to be weeks or months from now, maybe days even, what do you come up with here? If the temple's there forevermore, it's destroying the doctrine of the beast and the false prophet being in the next temple. Because their temple is in Pergamos. I'm not going to read all this, but Revelation 13:1 and 2 says the beast comes up out of the sea. John's standing on the sand and sees him. And Satan gives him his seat and his power and authority. And when you read in Revelation 2, I think starting in verse 12 or 17, it says that Satan's seat is in Pergamos. And that's where he dwells. So Satan dwells in Pergamos. So we know when Yeshua wrote this, which is roughly close to 2,000 years ago, Satan was already down on the earth in Pergamos, which is in North Cyprus, which is owned, operated, and controlled by Turkey. But it's in Cyprus, it's not in Israel. Now, some of the more modern translations say Pergamum, which is in Turkey. There's a difference here, but it's not a huge difference. North Cyprus and Turkey is the same government, but look, let's just cut through the chase and chop it. There never was a city in Israel called Pergamos or Pergamum. There never will be a city in Israel anywhere in the Bible called Pergamos or Pergamum. Okay? It's in Cyprus. And that's where Satan's seat is. So the beast has to be where Satan's seat is, because Satan gives him his seat. And Satan gives him his power and authority, so he's near Satan, and that's where Satan dwells. So that's where the beast and the false prophet happen. And that's where the mark of the beast is taken and the talking living statue is created and all of that. In Pergamum in North Cyprus, which is near Israel, but it's hundreds of miles away. Israel's border always stops at the Mediterranean, past, present, and future. It doesn't go there. So they don't get that right. So this is another stumbling block. And it's like a dominoes falling. It knocks all their prophecy off course. Okay? They're not going to ever talk about a temple coming down from heaven. But we read of a house not made with human hands in prophecy. And it's called a house, a bait in Hebrew, because the glory of God of Israel resides there. They don't even want to talk about the glory of God of Israel. Try to find in social media what they say about the glory of God of Israel. They don't even want to talk about him because he's their enemy. He's an enemy of the church, and they don't want you to know about him. In Exodus 23, we hear this is the angel that was in the wilderness with Moses and Aaron, who most likely is Michael. And God puts his name, Jehovah, in this angel so he could receive the offerings in the temple and the tabernacle. He met with Moses and Aaron at the mercy seat, and he was the one that was on Mount Sinai with Moses for 40 days, and he probably was the one that appeared to Elijah. God the Father, Jehovah, stays up in heaven. He comes down at the end of the world. He doesn't come down here. He's so holy, he'd probably either blow up the place, burn up the place, or explode the place. I don't know which, or combinations thereof, because he's so holy and the earth is so wicked. Okay? Then it goes on and says, my tabernacle, which is Mishkan, Mikdash and Mishkan being the tabernacle, also shall be with them. This is consistent with 2 Maccabees 2. That explains, and that's considered to be a very historical book, a very accurate historical book, that Jeremiah the prophet took the actual tabernacle just before the Babylonian invasion, and hid it in Mount Nebo, which was the mountain that Moses saw the Holy Land from but died on, and put it in a cave with the ark and the altar of incense. Whether or not there's a copy of the scriptures in Hebrew in there, we don't know. I hope. Probably, as my gut tells me, but the Lord has not told me. But I'm hoping it's there. And probably the ingredients for the incense too, which might be difficult to obtain or today. I don't know. And he closed the entrance of the cave up so no one could find it. And he says when the Lord returns to, shows mercy to Israel, they'll have it again. And the Lord shows mercy to Israel in Zechariah 1 and 2. I can't remember. It says, actually, I am returned to Jerusalem with mercies. It's either in Zechariah 1 or 2. That's going to happen real soon. The two witnesses are the mercies. So, my tabernacle also be with them. Does the tabernacle come first? I don't know. Probably not, because first we read of the temple and the glory of God of Israel in Malachi 3, going back there. And the Lord whom you seek shall suddenly, and what's the word for suddenly? Katam. Surprisingly is a good word for that. Surprisingly, let's see how Strong's treats the word. Strong's is not the cat's meow here, but he's better than the other ones. Instantly, straightway, or suddenly. Unexpectedly and rapidly he shall appear. So I would imagine that when Elijah finishes purifying and burning the dross out of the Levites, so the offerings are acceptable to Jehovah, then probably the temple comes. Now, we could be starting with the tabernacle. I'm not sure. The people that are going to unseal the mountain where the tabernacle are the two prophets, two witnesses. That's pretty much a given. I'll be right back. I'm going to have to go out and bypass my little critters. Okay, we're going to most likely have the tabernacle first. That's what I think the Lord just showed me. All right, let's go back. These guys want their cut. Give me a second to Take care of the zoo. Okay. All gone. Now, it says, the Adonai whom you seek shall suddenly come to his temple. This is not Elijah, it's not Apostle John. It's the glory of God of Israel. Which is that angel who's most likely Michael. That Jehovah put his name in. And then they write the words, even the messenger of the covenant. Well, that's not exactly what it says. It doesn't say even the messenger. They're trying to confuse you and make you think that it's Elijah coming to the temple. They don't want you to know about the glory God of Israel. The word even the messenger doesn't appear in the text. It just says Malach, messenger. So after the word temple, it says it's his temple, referencing Adonai, the glory God of Israel, who's the one that resides in the temple. Then it says Malach of the Brit, messenger of the covenant. Could that be the glory of God of Israel? Why would he call him first Adonai, Lord, and then call him a messenger when Elijah is the messenger preparing the way? So it doesn't make sense the way they do it. Malach Brit, messenger of the covenant whom you delight in, that would be Elijah. Behold, he shall come, saith Jehovah of hosts. It's sort of vague here, okay? But you can put the pieces together. It's talking about two. One is Adonai coming to his temple. Elijah never has a temple. There's no temple of Elijah, okay? It's Jehovah's temple, and the glory of God of Israel is the angel, probably Michael, whom Father God Jehovah put his name Jehovah in. So he could receive the offerings in place of or instead of Jehovah. And he's referred to as a re-reward for Israel. In other words, a re-reward, a reward again. A second time reward. So he, as a re-reward, probably comes after Elijah makes the offerings acceptable to the Lord with the Levites, and we'll get there. So Malachi 3:2, but who may abide the day of his coming? And who shall stand when he appeareth? Now this is, I believe, talking about Elijah. For he is like a refiner's fire and like a fuller's soap. He shall sit as a refiner and purifier of silver, and he shall purify the sons of Levi and purge them as gold and silver, that they may offer unto Jehovah, the Lord, an offering in righteousness. Okay? This is sort of what he did when he was around in the book of Kings with Jezebel and all that. The people, he was training up, they had the school of the prophets. I don't know, there was 150 prophets back then, something like that. He was involved with the school of the prophets, and he was a prophet. And he dared, drug Jezebel's priests into a dare with the animal on the wood, and the fire wouldn't come down for heaven, and then he had them pour water all over the offering and the wood and everything. Lots of water, and then fire came down from heaven and burned it up, and then they killed Jezebel's prophets. He had a hand in that, cutting their heads off, I think. They may offer unto Jehovah an offering in righteousness. Then shall the offerings of Judah and Jerusalem. Notice we don't have all the land back yet. So this is a pre-Zechariah 12 scenario. Got it? Then shall the offerings, and the word for offerings is mishcha. It basically is offerings. I mean, gift, donation, it's offerings. Offerings is okay. Sacrificial offerings is okay. Be pleasant, and the word for pleasant is arev. Maybe it's a reeb, I don't know. A reeb, I guess. Could mean be sweet or pleasant, so we're okay with the translation there. Be pleasant unto Jehovah as in the days of old, as in the former years. Okay. And I will come near to you to judgment, and that word is mishpat, justice, ordinance. And this is when the bad shepherds in Ezekiel 34 and the rich fat cats are getting cut off, which means dead. I will come near to you to judgment, and I will be a swift witness against the sorcerers and against the adulterers. Now we know what those are: witches, adulterers. Against false swearers, the false teachers and all that. Against those that oppress the hireling, that's the rich and the government, in his wages, the widow and the fatherless, and that turn aside the stranger from his right, and fear not me, saith Jehovah of armies. Now, there's massive discrimination against what's called the strangers here. The word for strangers is ger, which means non-Israelite. They're believers that are not native-born Israelite. They're very nasty too. They're nasty to newcomers that are Israelites. They take advantage of them. They have corruption in the government that they seem to control, and they keep the good jobs away in the businesses. It's terrible the way they are here. They're horrible. And that's why you read in Zechariah 13, 8, and 9, 2/3 will be cut off. This is the 2/3 getting cut off. Elijah's going to have a hand in that. Who I will be a witness. Well, we don't read of Apostle John here. So he might be doing something else at this time. So who are we reading that's here? Well, Elijah, and then the Lord says, I will be a swift witness. So he's one witness, and Elijah, who is his son, if you read Zechariah 4, verse 14, is also, it's his anointed son, is also going to be a witness against them. And I've seen all this stuff go on in Israel, Okay, and for I am Jehovah, I change not. Therefore the sons of Yaakov are not consumed. Even from the days of your fathers you are gone away from mine ordinances, and have not kept them. Return unto me, and I will return unto you, saith Jehovah of hosts. Well, the Israelis that have been here for some time, that discriminate against the newcomers, have lost sight of the fact that they got their land cheap and free, or close to free, or very inexpensively, and now they bleed the Israeli public blind. They bleed them, they squeeze them so hard. It's like remember the old American nickel? It had a buffalo on the back, right? There was an expression that says he squeezes the money so hard the buffalo on the nickel piece. That's how they are. They make the tenant pay the taxes on the property. The tenant has no real chance of any legal justice outcome in the courts of Israel against the landlords. And they keep raising the rents on the people, and they force the tenants to make the repairs to their house. Force them to make the repairs to the house. They make them give 12 post-dated checks every year for the lease. Not all the landlords, many. And, so they don't have to worry about a rent check coming late or anything like that. And if the check bounces, the aggravation the tenant has is massive. Let me tell you, I'm not going to go through all this. And, they're going to be cut off. And the employers that are prejudicial against anybody but an SBOT is going to be cut off, all of them, and the government. And this is the first yoke is gone. This yoke needs to be off for the offerings to be acceptable to the Lord. And the people doing these things are gone. They're cut off. Down the road motors. They're not in it. They're not above ground anymore. Okay? That's your 2/3, because God's not going to go and restore Israel with them. They're evil. If he restores Israel, they're going to just reproduce what they did and restored Israel and try to run Israel against the will of God and all that. So they're goners. And that could happen any day or any week, and probably not more than a couple of months or a few months at best. It's not going into the years. Forget that. So return unto me and I will return unto you. These people are never going to return unto the Lord. These rich fat cats, the government people, they love corruption. They love corrupt everything in Israel. But you said, wherein shall you return? Will a man rob God? Yet you have robbed me. But you say, wherein have we robbed thee? In tithes and offerings. Now, the true believers here are going to be living in the houses of these rich fat cats and enjoying their expensive furniture and their other possessions. How's them apples? Watch it come to pass. You are cursed with a curse, for you have robbed me, even this whole nation. Oh, I don't want to go through all this. People get mad about it's not giving offerings is considered robbing God, and I'll go through it. It's wrong not to. So, wait a minute. But you say, wherein have, I'm back here. I'll finish the whole chapter. I shouldn't abbreviate out of it. Wherein shall we return? Will a man rob God? Yet you have robbed me. But you say, wherein have we robbed thee? In tithes and offerings. You are cursed with a curse, for you have robbed me, even this whole nation. So when people are getting fed by the likes of me, for instance, and they don't give offerings, they're robbing God, and it brings about a curse. And then you got the ones that give $5 a month, and they're giving something, but they're going to cast their bread upon the water, and they'll find it, and they'll get $5 worth of it. They reap what they sow, and they are sowing in a good way, but they're going to get paid back in a minuscule way, the way they give. Bring you all the tithes into the storehouse, that there may be meat in my house. Now, there's a lot of people that think nothing of asking me questions all the time and never give offerings. And I usually put up with it. Unless they start, sounding me down and attacking me, then I don't pay attention to them anymore. It's a waste of my time. But these are the people that just go around studying Bible and Bible prophecy, and they have faith of a sort, but they have no works to their credit. They have no works. They like muzzling the ox, me, when it treads the grain. And they're robbing God, and they don't understand that. And let the other people give offerings. Well, that's not how the gospel works. Okay. Bring you all the tithes into my storehouse, that there may be meat in my house. And prove me now herewith, saith the Lord of hosts, if I will not open you the windows of heaven and pour you out a blessing, that there shall not be room enough to receive it. See, they don't believe that the Lord will bless them for giving offerings. they're screwed up. They're covetous. They're off track. They don't know what they're doing. They're not going to make it. Okay, I'd be shocked if they make it. Covetous and not giving offerings is not the unforgivable sin, and God may try to work with them and all that. But I think most of them are not the real McCoy. They're the called and not the chosen. The chosen do offerings. I don't think they're ever. It's not that they fell away; they were never in the first place. That's what I'm saying. And I will rebuke the devourer for your sakes. That's the bugs that eat the crops, like locusts, palmer worms, canker worms. And he shall not destroy the fruits of your ground, neither shall your vine cast her fruit before the time in the field, saith Jehovah of armies. And all goyim, or nations, shall call you blessed. That word should be, wait a minute. Let's see what happens. Call you blessed. Doesn't say what they say it says in Malachi 3:12. The first word is call, which means all. The next word is goyim, which is heathens. It could be construed to mean nations, heathen nations. Shall call you blessed. Oh, it doesn't say that. To be straight or level is what it's saying. So it's saying call goyim straight or level, and then it says for, maybe it means that you I don't know what that means. Shall be you haya be delightsome ha'eretz, delightsome land. Saith Jehovah of hosts. So all goyim straight for you be delightsome, and maybe it means that the corruption isn't here anymore. We're straight and honest and walking with the Lord. Your words have been stout against me, saith Jehovah. Yet you say, what have we spoken so much against thee? You have said it is vain to serve Elohim. And what profit is it? That's God, plural, Elohim. And what profit is it that we have kept his ordinances and that we have walked mournfully before Jehovah Elohim? No, Jehovah of armies. And now we call the proud happy, yea, they that work wickedness are set up, yea, they that tempt God are even delivered. It's talking about the Espods. Then they that feared the Lord spake often one to another, like you do, I guess, and Jehovah hearkened and heard it, and a book of remembrance was written before him for them that feared Jehovah and that thought upon his name. And they shall be mine, saith the Lord of hosts, in the day when, it's Jehovah of hosts, in the day when I make up my jewels, and I will spare them as a man spares his own son that serveth him. Then shall you return and discern between Then shall you return and discern between the righteous and the wicked, between him that serveth God and him that serveth him not. Well, they're going to be cut off and gone. So you see, this is trying to explain to you how these other people can't possibly get prophecy right, because their doctrines are full of so many stumbling blocks. Okay? They're never going to get it right. They're only going to build on error, and you can't. Their chronology, their timing will never be right. And while they're aware of some events, they're never going to be able to put the pieces together. And, you know, that's not going to stay that way. It's going to change. These are the days of Elijah, but they're just kind of the early, very, very early stages, and it's going to get better when the signs and wonders light up all over the world and stuff. Then, you know, or get taken note of all over the world, then it's going to become different. And that will lead us into the end of churchianity and the end of Hinduism and Mohammedanism and Catholicism and churchianity and Hinduism, all that stuff's going to fall apart. And that's why when Satan makes his next push, he'll be pushing for idolatry with the image that maketh desolate, and then later on the beast and the false prophet and the living talking statue and all this stuff. I don't know how living the statue is, but it talks. I wouldn't call it living. It just gets smashed for its end. You don't put the statue in the lake of fire because it doesn't have a spirit, okay? It's just a thing that God let bring to life, you know, and talk. I don't know how alive it is. And you just smash it and it's over. It has no spirit. When you destroy its body, i.e. the statue, there's no spirit left behind. It's nothing. So there's so much stuff just here with the temple, the tabernacle, Elijah, the bad ones in Israel getting cut off. And, you know, they don't understand any of this. And then just go to the next. I mean, we could build on Malachi and just show most of their errors just here. Malachi 4:1, the next chapter. For behold, the day cometh that shall burn like as an oven. And all the proud, yea, and all that do wickedly shall be stubble. And the day that cometh shall burn them up, saith Jehovah of armies, that it shall leave them neither root. Let's read this slowly. For behold, the day cometh. Okay, the word for day is yom, which means day. Behold is hine, so it's like look. And the word for burn is ba'ar. Consume. Let's see. Kindle, consume by fire. Could be by eating, but I don't think it involves cannibalism. So it's burn a fire, you know, fire. That shall burn as an oven, and all the proud, yea, and all that do wickedly shall be stubble. And the day that cometh shall burn them up, saith Jehovah of hosts, that it shall leave them neither root nor branch. Now, does this say here that this is the people surrounding Jerusalem and Judah? No. Let's go to the next verse. But unto you that fear my name, you see, now he's making the division, because the ones that get burned up don't fear his name. It could be the enemies invading. It very well could be them. And also the bad ones, the 2/3. The 2 witnesses apparently are going to burn them up, or Jehovah burns them up, probably the 2 witnesses. Maybe not. Maybe Jehovah does it. The 2 witnesses might not know who they are. It's not going to make a big difference to us. But unto you that fear my name shall the Son of Righteousness, S-U-N, and S-U-N is Shemish in Hebrew, Son of Righteousness arise with healing in his extremities. Well, it says wings. The word is kanaf. When they, back in the days of Yeshua, let's go back to that point in time, they wore robes and they had the tzitzit, the tassels, on all the outer borders of the robe, not just hanging off the belt for tassels like they do today. It wasn't that way. It was all the whole garment's borders. That's healing with his wings. The word is kanaf. It means extremities. That's referencing when the woman with the issue of blood for 12 years touched Yeshua's tassels and she got healed, and he said, power came out from me. Okay, that's what happened. And you shall go forth and grow up as calves of the stall. Doesn't say that. You shall frolic about or jump around like a calf of the stall. Let's break this down better. Unto you that fear my name shall the Son of Righteousness arise. What does the word arise mean? It's sarak. Break out, arise, shine. Arise as the sun, appear. Appear like as lightning from the east to the west. The appearing, this is the appearing of the Son of Man of Yeshua, not the second coming. They don't even know this happens, most of them. So, shall the Son of Righteousness, who's clearly Yeshua, arise or shine with healing in his extremities, and you shall go forth and grow up as calves from the stall. So the word for healing is 4832, which is marpe. It means a cure, health, curative, so that's when you get eternal life. You have an incorruptible body. When you see him, you shall be like him. That's in the Bible. And Yeshua has eternal life, and he's quite glorified. You will shine. Arise, shine, your light has come. The glory of the Lord is risen upon thee. Okay. You will shine when this happens. Now, when you're jumping out of the stall like a calf, it's you have this incorruptible body, eternal life. In other places, I think in Isaiah, it says you shall run and not be weary. Okay? You're not going to sleep anymore. You don't have to sleep. Where does it show you Yeshua went to sleep after he was resurrected? Nowhere. That I ever saw. So you're probably going to look much younger. I don't know. You're probably not going to look like a 5-year-old. You probably look like what you looked like when you were perhaps someplace around 21, 25, 27, 30, someplace in there. But you're not going to be like that. You're going to have a much healthier body. You're not going to have imperfections. You're not going to have any disease or ailments or bad knees or legs or hips or wrists or vision or hearing or teeth or baldness or any of that stuff. It's all going to be gone. As a woman, will you still have the period? Maybe not. It doesn't speak to it that I know of, but I am thinking maybe not. Probably not. And the childbirth is probably going to be pretty pain-free. Will the gestation period still be 9 months? I don't know. It might be faster because we're going to have a whole lot of children, or it may stay the same. Am I 100% that women won't have the periods anymore? No. I just don't think they will. It's part of the curse. I think it'll be lifted. Arise with healing in his. So now you're not going to have women unclean every month. Why? They don't have any period. Now, when they give birth, will they be unclean because blood comes out like that? I don't know. I don't know if they're going to have the blood coming out. I think everything's going to be a lot different with this eternal life. I think the women will be able to run around right till the time the baby comes out. I don't think they're going to have birth pangs and cramps and, nausea in the morning. All that stuff I think is going to be gone. Okay? This would likely happen after the two witnesses, or minimally Elijah, was working, getting the offerings acceptable unto the Lord. Then, when that happens, they're going to go into a double reward. And they're going to have the blessings of the law on them. So Yeshua will appear, and they'll become saved, the ones in Jerusalem and the house of David. How many others are really left in Israel is a good question. 2/3 are gone. So, if you take the whole population of 9.5 million or so, you have about 3.5 million people left. But I think it's not going to be direct proportionalism. I think a lot of the non-Israelites will be cut off. A lot. And grow up as calves in the stall, you're going to be jumping around and running and, doing all kinds of stuff because you'd be so happy you've got this new body that you never ever thought you guys know about it, but, they never thought they were going to have this thing again. They thought, from experience, growing old stinks, and it kind of prepares people for death because you just keep getting worse all the time. You diminish. Different things in your body get worse, and sometimes it might stay the same, but you start going downhill, and it just becomes a major portion of your life to deal with the problems of old age. And you shall tread down the wicked, for they shall be ashes under the soles of your feet. So they've been burned up in the day that I shall do this, saith Jehovah of hosts. So the same day, it could be the wicked get cut off, the invaders that lay siege in Zechariah 12 to Judah and Jerusalem get cut off. It could be all in the same day. Remember, because the two witnesses in Zechariah 12:6 burn them up on the right hand and the left hand all around. So that's the greater Israel nations, and they get all burned up. Remember you the law of Moses, my servant, which I commanded unto him in Horeb. Yeah, that's the same law the church says is done away with. For all Israel with the statutes and judgments. Well, the rabbis teach that the law has been done away with too, but they don't teach it exactly that way. They say Moses gave the Talmudic rabbis, which is who they all are today, I believe. They say that the Lord gave the Moses written law to the Goyim to confuse them. But the real law was the oral law. So they say they took the oral law and wrote it down in a series of books, 10 or 12 books, called the Talmud, and that's the real law. So they are in a bad way. As it says here, remember you the law of Moses, my servant, which I commanded unto him in Horeb, for all Israel with statutes and judgments. So they won't do that. They'll be cut off, I suppose. They also won't call on the name of the Lord. They use the words Hashem, which means the name, because they won't pronounce the name of the Lord. And that's Satan blotting out them calling for anything. So, okay. Behold, I will send you Elijah the prophet. Well, that's pretty definitive that it is Elijah the prophet. The word for prophet should be Nevi, or Nevim, let's see. Nevi, which is singular, Nevim is plural. So the two prophets is Shtaim Nevim. Prophet is Nevi. Um, Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord. Well, that happens in Zechariah 14, some years after. So for some reason, God told us it would be before the coming of the great day of the Lord, but the great day of the Lord is Gog and Magog, the book of Joel, and Ezekiel 8 to 9. It's not Zechariah 12. Zechariah 12 is Jacob's trouble, which says, great is Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it. Israel's not saved out of Gog and Magog. Just read Zechariah 14. Half of Jerusalem goes into captivity. So the only battle coming up on Israel is Zechariah 12 that he gets saved out of. We don't hear of a single injured Israelite, let alone dead. And he shall turn the heart of the fathers to the children, and the heart of the children to their fathers, lest I come and smite the earth with a curse. It's just the fathers, the tribes are named after, things, this type of thing. So this is, what you see, and now it's impossible for them to really understand prophecy with all these errors they have inserted on purpose into it. They don't talk about having the temple and the tabernacle. I don't hear that. They don't talk about much. I mean, Gog and Magog is the great falling away. It is the great day of the Lord. And that's when all the bad stuff stops happening to Israel, and then it goes to the nations. Because after this, Zechariah 14, the great day of the Lord, they have to go up and worship the Lord one day a year for the Feast of Tabernacles, and if they don't do that, they get no rain. The two witnesses shut the rain. So they're still here. And then when you don't have rain, you got famine. And then when you got famine, that's the impact of the you can't buy and sell without the mark of the beast. So you're not going to be able to get food without the mark of the beast. So it's profound over there. You don't hear any of these nincompoops talk about this. They don't have any concept. They can't put the pieces together. Only thing they can do is have a choreographed piece of paper or something to work on it, but they might memorize it. But they're all tripping over their own shoelaces. They can't get it. They don't understand John 6:40, or they won't teach it, that says, "For those that believe and look upon the Son of Man shall have eternal life," and that's what happens in Zechariah 12 and 13. Malachi 3 and 4. I mean, and Zechariah 12. They can't get it right. In Zechariah 12:10, first the Lord pours his Spirit out on Jerusalem and the house of David. And then they look upon the one whom they have pierced and mourn for him like an only. It's Yeshua. When you hear him talk about the two witnesses, how does it manifest? I'll tell you. Let's, dear beloved saints, let's go to Revelation 11. I'm mimicking them. And, here we are in the tribulation temple, and the two witnesses are wearing sackcloth, and then, boom, they get killed, and that's all they talk about. They don't tell you who they are, and they don't tell you much about what they do, and, they don't talk much about the second Exodus at all. Most of them think the second Exodus comes after they are elevated up into heaven. Churchianity is the good stuff happens to the church and the bad stuff happens to Israel. In a nutshell, that's what it is. And that's not the case. That's Chief snoring. So they don't have any idea about America going into the snare, which is in Jeremiah 50, verse 24, I believe. And they don't have any idea about that. So if they're not talking about America as the daughter of Babylon, you're never going to get any decent prophecy out of them. If they don't understand the two witnesses, ditto, never get any decent prophecy out of them. If they don't have good teachings on the glory of God of Israel, ditto, you're never going to get good teachings out of them. If they don't understand the next temple and it comes down from heaven and it's the house for the glory of God of Israel made without hands, they're never going to get prophecy right. So there be these stumbling blocks, and there's many more, but when you see one of these stumbling blocks, there's a problem. God's not working with them, or they're not listening to God, or both, or something. I don't know. It couldn't be both, but you got to get that down. They don't know nothing. They can't put the pieces together. It's impossible. And if they don't know in Isaiah 1 that God says he's going to run Israel like he did at the first with Moses and Aaron, who were two judges, Elijah and John the Apostle are going to be two judges, and the 70 counselors, if they don't know that, how are they going to put anything together? You can't. If they don't understand the appearing of the sign of the Son of Man, miraculous appearing of Yeshua in the clouds, is going to happen separate from the second coming, how could they ever put things together? If they think the tribulation and the so-called tribulation temple is going to be in Israel, how could they put things together? They can't. If they think Gog and Magog is coming now, how could they put anything together? Israel is not living in peace and safety without bars and walls, with cattle, silver, gold, and great riches. You know, well, it will happen soon after the war. They're nuts. They throw things out that they can't, if they can't teach Zechariah 12 and 13 correctly, and 14, and Malachi 3 and 4, they can't do anything. All they can do is run their deceitful things. Look, if they break John 6:39, John 6:40, John 6:44, and John 6:54, where 4 times Yeshua says, I will raise all that the Father gave him, the believers, he will raise them up at the last day. That's, everybody goes up on one day. And the last day means there are no more days. It's after the millennium is over. Satan's released, gathers them like the sand of the sea, which is probably going to take some years, maybe a generation, to surround Judah and Jerusalem, and then fire comes down from heaven, burns everything up, and we meet them in the air and go up on the, because there's nothing left to stand on, and go up in the clouds of heaven to be in the third heaven with Father God, Jehovah, and Yeshua for eternity. So if they don't understand everybody goes up on the same day in the last day, how can they teach prophecy? Okay, so I give you a number of things, and when you look at these things and they have these things wrong, a little leaven ruineth the whole loaf. They're not going to get anything right, because their dominoes don't line up to fall down and to get together in a row as prophecy gets fulfilled. Their dominoes are here and there, and they can't progress. It's all erratic. It's stupid. They don't understand it. If they don't understand that there's a temple preceding New Jerusalem that comes down from heaven, they're not going to get stuff straight. There's a lot of people, not a lot, there's people running around saying they're starting to build a third temple. They are not. There's nobody in Israel starting a third temple. And if you find somebody that has some truth about one of these points, but the other points are not truthful or missing, how can God use him? He can't give you any good picture or something like that. See, the people are supposed to seek the word at the mouth of the Kohanim. That's in Malachi 2, the priest, which I am one, a descendant of Aaron. Okay, if I shouldn't have told you, I don't know. I tell you because I think it's wrong not to tell you. And I have the Holy Spirit, so you got me. It doesn't tell the people to go seek the law at the mouth of the church living outside Israel that are not Israelites. It doesn't work that way. The Lord doesn't go from the nations into Israel. They're all backwards. So back to your families. I did a thing on the spiritual warfare for the families yesterday. Yes, a couple hundred people, few hundred, not even 300 people, I think. Or it'll probably be 300, 400 when it's given time. Watched it. I hope it helps them. It's fine and perfect and correct to be concerned about your family and put time and energy into family, but you can't obsess with it. You have to worry about your own walk with the Lord and what the Lord wants to use you for. You've got to be careful. There's next to nothing of true teaching out there that I could find. And I look every day. I have keywords I search for to see if anybody's coming up with the truth, and I don't find it. Three out of 4 categories of seeds don't make it. That leaves 25%. Straight and narrow is the way, and few be to find it. It's going to be quite a few. Not going to be a broad amount of people that find it, I tell you that. It's not going to be a lot. It's going to be few. So, I'll see if I have questions. I don't know about prayer requests. I'll check. I hope I'm helping you here, to cut through it, because I know there's a lot of people that go around looking to see what other people are saying, and, now you've got tools to see if the other people, what they're saying, has a chance of ever resembling the truth. Okay? Once you start having one piece of the puzzle missing, it's hard to put the pieces together correctly. But if you've got 8 or 10 pieces missing, you're way off into another gospel. You're not anywhere near the truth. You're into Gaga land, And that's what the church are into, Gaga land. They're asleep. Okay, let's do Psalm 9. That's pretty interesting. To the chief musician upon Muthal Ben, a psalm of David, I will praise thee, O Lord, with my whole heart. I will show forth all thy marvelous works. I will be glad and rejoice in thee. I will sing praise to thy name, O thou most high God. Now, I think I'm one of the only websites that ever starts off with praise to Jehovah and Yeshua with the correct names. When mine enemies are turned back, they shall fall and perish at thy presence. For thou hast maintained my right and my cause, though saith in what? It's just choppy English. For thou hast maintained my right and my cause. Thou sit in the throne judging right. Thou hast rebuked the heathen. Thou hast destroyed the wicked. Thou hast put out their flame forever, their name forever and ever. O thou enemy, destructions are coming to a perpetual end, and thou hast destroyed cities. Their memorial is published with them. But the Lord shall endure forever. He hath prepared him. But the Lord shall endure forever. He shall prepare his throne for judgment. And he shall judge the world in righteousness. He shall minister judgment to the people in uprightness. Jehovah also will be a refuge for the oppressed. Are you oppressed? He's your refuge. A refuge in times of trouble. And they'll teach us to be a secret rapture or some junk like that. It's absurd. And they know thy name will put they that know thy name. Well, the rabbis teach the people that they can't state the name Jehovah. They instead say Hashem, which means the name, which is not his name. They'll be afraid to call on him. Because there are other gospel books, the Talmud, tell them not to. And what do the churches do? They call him Jesus, Jehovah, Yahweh, all these bad names. And they that know thy name will put their trust in thee, for thou, Lord, that's Jehovah, hast not forsaken them that seek thee. Do you seek him? Well, he's not going to forsake you. Sing praises to Jehovah, which dwelleth in Zion. Declare among the people, is the word people, his doings. His doings would be his deeds, the great things he's done. That's what we should be declaring. When he maketh inquisition for blood, he remembered them. He forgetteth not the cry of the humble. Have mercy upon me, O Jehovah. Consider my trouble, which I suffer of them that hate me. Thou that liftest me up from the gates of death, that I may show forth. Lifted me up from the gates of death, I think means you're not going to go into the second death, the lake of fire. That I lifted up, go up to heaven. I may show forth that I may show forth all thy praise in the gates of the daughter of Zion. See, there's the daughter of Babylon, the redoing of Babylon, old Babylon, America, and daughter of Zion, which is us. Redoing Israel again. It's not hard. A daughter is a descendant of the parent. So we're the daughter of Sion, Zion, and they're the daughter of evil Babylon. I will rejoice in thy salvation. The daughter of Zion is a good thing, a great thing. The other is a very bad thing, like the old Babel. That's where they built a tower to try to come storm the gates of heaven or whatever they were trying to do. And he had to scatter their languages. The heathen are sunk down, the goyim, in the pit that they made in the net, which they hid, is their own foot taken. That's this. The net is like a snare. It's not mentioning the particular snare on the daughter of Babylon. It's a little more broad here. More broad. Jehovah is known by the judgment which he executeth, the wicked is snared. There it is. Daughter of Babylon, Jeremiah 50:24. They're in the snare. They're going in the snare. In the work of his own hands, he does it. Gayon Salah. The wicked shall be turned into hell. That would be Sheol, I think, yes. And all the goyim that forget God, they go to the same place, Sheol. For the needy shall not always be forgotten. The expectation of the poor shall not perish forever. So the expectation of the poor shall not perish forever. You're going to be rich real soon in Israel. Real rich. Big time. Slaves, servants, lands, money, all that, jewels. Arise, O Lord, let not man prevail. That's the UN and all the nations, that have a wish and desire against that Jehovah has. Let the heathen be judged in thy sight. Put them in fear, O Jehovah, that the nations, the goyim, may know themselves to be but men. In other words, they're not gods like Satan's telling them, and they don't have power like Satan's telling them and all this other stuff. And then some will will come to Jehovah, repent, and try for salvation and so forth. So, basically, at this point, I think I accomplished, to a good extent, what I was trying to accomplish. So, I'm Moshe, my wife is Rivka. Please pray for our peace, safety, protection, joy. Pray for our finances. Thank you for those giving the offerings. Thank you much. And offering information is in the description box under the video, and it's also in the chat. And we now can take PayPal. Just send me an email. My email address is at the lowest line down in the description box. It's also in the chat. It's israelgiving7@gmail.com. Israelgiving, one word, with the digit 7@gmail.com. And just write PayPal in the subject header, and I'll send you the PayPal link. I don't like putting it up here because I'll get all these idiots bothering it. So I put my email address up here. You have no idea how much spam I get at times from doing that. I mean, I don't, So pray for the peace of Yerushalayim. Pray for our animals and pets, which are all rescues, that they be happy, healthy, and whole. Pray we don't have to go into the bomb shelters. And pray for my abdominal section here. I'm having trouble. I had some pain, which I think was muscular, and my system got backed up, if you know what I mean. And I started eating a lot of bran and grain, and it seems to be correcting. But I was taking copper supplements, and I think that was the bad guy. And I stopped, but please pray for healing in my system and no more pain in my stomach. I appreciate it. And I will send my shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach. I hope you got something out of it. You can send me using my email, ask me questions. You could ask me for the Telegram site. Just download the Telegram Messenger app and then ask me and I'll send you an invite link. And prayer requests, give me the initials of the person you want for prayer requests and I'll put it up. If you have an emergency prayer request, I'll put it up on Telegram. And that's it, and I'm out. And that's it. Thanks, guys.